I believe the NYPD, when they put forward their numbers, what we're seeing are some of the lowest numbers that New York City has seen in recorded history, especially when it comes to murders and shootings. These are the lowest we've ever seen. And what I think is important to know is a lot of the increase in rape also comes from an expanded definition of what counts as rape, as well as survivors coming forward for acts that took place years prior.
Rape is up exponentially, and the mayor says, well, it really depends on how you define rape. Maybe he should ask his wife. She seems to enjoy it when Israeli girls get raped. Maybe 5 at a time, gangbanged by a whole bunch of terrorists and Hamas guys. Maybe he should ask his wife what constitutes rape. I don't know. He is the most disgusting person God ever created. I don't know how any of these media members get angry with me. Been over this a million times. Errol Lewis, Katie Honan, even some of the real mainstays, people I respect, the Marshall Kramers, the Morgan Mackays, they never ask this guy a real question. Melissa Russo, maybe every now and then, not often. You know, Michael Rappaport was very funny on this show yesterday. Let me go down there. I want to go down there. I want one of these stations to employ Sid Rosenberg for one day. One day. Let that communist-run New York One Spectrum, instead of Errol Lewis, that fat, stupid, black racist, sitting there with Mamdani every Thursday, let me do it once. Your business is all about ratings. You do realize that, right, you dumb bastards? Don't you think that Sid Rosenberg and Mamdani would generate bigger ratings than Lewis and Mamdani? Now, look, I don't think I would even do it, because I'm not sure I could sit in the same room with that guy without beating him to a pulp. And yes, that was just a physical, violent statement. I don't care. I don't think I can do it. I really don't. Frank Morano is one of our 5 Republican city council members. You know the story. One of the 2, along with the great David Carr out of Staten Island, and a tremendous radio guy as well, a former colleague. He joins us this morning. He's outraged about the mayor trying to redefine rape as well. So with that said, Frank, just take it away. Mamdani's latest.
First of all, Sid, I watched that answer 3 times because I genuinely couldn't believe that that was the answer the mayor of New York City chose to give, not on a subject like city thefts or, welfare reform or something that maybe requires a little nuance or some depth. It was a pretty cut and dry issue of rape in a post-Me Too era, and he's ostensibly the leader of a political movement that is very down with being woke and women's rights and everything like that. Not a movement that necessarily sees a lot of gray area when it comes to rape. I mean, this was crazy. If this was a Republican mayor or a politician of any type that gave this answer, forget about it. If that was Rudy Giuliani or Mike Bloomberg, they would have filleted him. This was...
Forget about a politician. I got to tell you, if I went on the air and said that, I'd be in trouble.
Yeah, you've said a lot less severe things and gotten filleted for that. Right. But I'll tell you, if more survivors are coming forward, that's a good thing. But the crime that happened to them is not a good thing. And that's what the mayor totally failed to highlight. You don't spin rape statistics. You don't massage them. You don't look for the sunny side. A survivor coming forward years later doesn't mean the rape didn't happen. Right. It means we learned about it later. The proper answer is, and this is not an answer that puts him in a bad light at all if he would have given it, is I'm deeply concerned. We're examining the numbers. We're going to protect women and bring predators to justice. Period. Done. End of story. Instead, we got a sociology seminar. This administration, and I think you know me, said it, and I said this even before he was elected, I'm not looking to beat the guy up just to beat the guy up, right? I have no problem working with someone that I disagree with 99% of the time on the one issue that maybe we agree on. But this administration has this strange instinct. Whenever New Yorkers identify disorder or crime, the first response is to explain why we're interpreting it incorrectly.
The first response really is to beat their chest and give out a couple of really favorable numbers, which also I can go into those numbers like he did with rape and do the same thing, but I choose not to when it comes to shootings and murders. That's their first response.
And hate
right,
crimes.
hate crimes.
You want to take a look at
right,
hate crimes?
Hate crimes. We're doing great, except...
Or transit crime.
Right,
Yeah.
except when somebody gets punched in the face on the subway, except when a Jewish person gets punched across the face, except when a young girl gets raped in a stairwell. Otherwise, we're doing great.
Yeah, the reporter there asked a very simple, very fair question, and the mayor gave what can only be described as a bizarre answer. So I don't need the mayor.
I think bizarre is the wrong word. I would even say insensitive and downright grotesque.
So I don't need a mayor or any politician to find the silver lining in rape statistics. Right. I need him to find the rapists.
Right.
This is crazy. It's an absolutely crazy situation, and I was glad the speaker called him out on it. You could tell that she is getting his goat to some extent.
No, there's no question about it. When her and I had our difficulties, she was really, and I'll say this, bending over backwards to appease him. She has not been doing that as of late, whether it was me, Vicky. She has not been doing that as of late. I mean, it seems like, and you too, you guys are constantly, from the budget to the lack of cops, no cops on the budget, no fifth firefighter, to this thing with the rape, to the horses. It seems like almost every day now, Julie Menon has an issue with the mayor. Now, I didn't play her response, but if you can give me the Monarch Note version, what exactly did she say in response to that awful description of rape by the mayor?
Well, first of all, that question came about, and Dan Manarino from Pix asked it because she was making such a big deal over the uptick in rape crimes as a reason we need more cops. And then he asked the question, she gave that bizarre response. Not only did she, and by the way, not just her, but many of our colleagues, you have... I know you and not without reason have said there's really not much, no such thing as a conservative Democrat these days. At least there's one in the city, Phil Wong, who represents Bob Holden's old district. He certainly is a conservative Democrat.
And Bob Holden, for that matter, Bob Holden, who I talk to, and I watch his tweets every day because I think he's a brilliant guy. We had our issues during the Curtis run, but I really love the guy. Bob Holden was that guy, so it looks like Phil Wong has continued Holden's legacy.
Up the mantle.
Yeah.
But he decried the mayor's response. And so did more conventional establishment Democrats like Lynn Schulman and even some of the liberal Democrats. There is nobody standing up for what the mayor said. But basically, Julie said that in words or substance, I'm not quoting her here, but that it defies any reasonable logic that the mayor would choose to characterize rapes that way. And you could almost give him a gimme if he was handling every other aspect of his job well. But honestly, everything that he is handling in this city is turning to pot. And, I heard you, and maybe it was with Joe Benigno the other day, or maybe it was one of your monologues, talk about how it takes time for the city to turn around in both directions, on a positive level and in a negative direction. We are setting this city up for failure in so many different areas. I heard, your terrific interview with Vicky yesterday, and you guys talked about the Little Italy debacle. I mean, that's just one minor example, which ultimately doesn't affect many people's lives, but it says a lot about the mayor's character. He doesn't view himself as a cheerleader for New York City. He doesn't view himself as a mayor that represents all New Yorkers. And if you look at how he's handling homelessness, the way that he's handling homelessness, whether it's in Manhattan, Brooklyn, or Staten Island, that has the opportunity to set us back to the pre-Giuliani era more than almost anything any mayor's ever done. Take a look at what's going on at the Intrepid. If you walk outside of the Intrepid, there's this homeless encampment. The Post has been covering it. It stretches 12 blocks on the west side.
12 blocks.
There's tents. There's open drug
That's
use.
like Los Angeles. That's like Los Angeles, Frank.
Yeah, and police had to intervene yesterday over an illegal electricity hookup. The homeless are setting up camps and with electricity. And this is what happens when compassion gets divorced from common sense.
Listen, enough with the compassion. I'm sorry, not on this show. Save it for other shows on this station. I know they talk about that. I put my son on a subway. We had just moved back from Boca Raton, Florida. And New York is scary enough. And we had to take Gabriel to school one day on the subway. He was about 7 years old. And some guy pushed him, tried to physically harm him. Some other guy was naked. And, he didn't get, there wasn't a crime committed necessarily, but it scarred that kid for life. And when you walk past some crazy homeless guy in New York City and he starts yelling and screaming or cursing and he smells and looks terrible, that is not just some innocent guy. I know some of them were service people in Vietnam and all that stuff. I get it. But it has gotten to the point where these people on the streets of New York City absolutely play a role in lessening the quality of life. It's enough with compassion.
No doubt,
Get these people off the goddamn streets.
Well, and you know what? It's also for that former serviceman that's now homeless because he's dealing with drug issues or mental illness. It's not compassionate to the homeless person living in a tent surrounded by drugs and filth. It's also, to your point about quality of life for everybody else, it's not compassionate to the bus driver who's got to work there or the family taking their kid to the Intrepid. And it's especially absurd to the taxpayers who are spending billions with a B, of dollars on a shelter and social service system, only to be told that a 12-block encampment is somehow inevitable.
Right, but that's Manhattan. So that's the 12-block encampment in Manhattan. I know you listened to the very beginning of the show because you love that. You said that at all these, at all the big radio conventions. Thank you. So I did play the video of Ina Vernikov out of Brooklyn in her car talking about what's going on in Sheepshead Bay, and this company, I guess, that's behind this potential shelter, they're being investigated, and Mamdani still gave him a couple of $100 million. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, more or less, yeah. I mean, Ina's totally right, and this story ought to terrify every neighborhood in New York City, because the issue isn't whether homeless people deserve help. Of course they do, right? We're a compassionate city, even if we won't be when you're mayor. But the issue is whether City Hall can fundamentally transform a residential neighborhood, which is what Sheepshead Bay is, with virtually no meaningful community input. They're taking out families and bringing in 110 single adult men. The city says it's not even conducting criminal background vetting. Across the street from where that shelter is going to be, where the Gold Star Inn or the Gold Star Inn, across the street is a park that's used by children. How does a government look parents in the eye and say, don't worry, we deliberately chose not to find out who we're placing here? Vetting isn't demonizing the homeless or anybody. Vetting is just basic competence. And I keep saying this because in our district in Staten Island, they're doing the same thing. We're a living version of it on Arthur Kill Road. Communities learn about these decisions after this bureaucracy has already decided what it's going to do.
You know what I would do? I would not only not close Rikers Island, I'd build new housing on Rikers Island, and I'd put 3 groups of people on Rikers Island. I mean this. Obviously, the criminals, they need to be there, okay? Not in my neighborhood. Secondly, I would put illegals somewhere else on Rikers Island, and the homeless. You got acres and acres and acres and acres of land. Take all 3 of those groups, the criminals, the illegals, and the homeless, and build more housing and put them on Rikers Island. Keep all those people away from law-abiding citizens like us. Let me get to the minorities, this battle over specialty programs in schools. Both of my kids went through the public school system in New York, and it nearly ruined both of them. Thank God Ava and Gabriel are smart kids. They've got great parents, but it really did nearly ruin both of them. Here's another issue with this mayor, education. What's going on with that, Frank?
Well, so yesterday the numbers came out. So New York City has a few of the very best public schools, not just in the country, but the world. Stuyvesant, Bronx High School of Science, Brooklyn Tech.
Great
in
schools.
the world, right?
Yeah,
and
yes.
I think John Katzimatidis went to Brooklyn Tech. So did my dad. So did my brher. Great schools.
So did Peter King, I think.
No, I think he went to Fordham Prep.
Are you sure?
He didn't make it to Brooklyn Tech. I mean,
yeah. Okay.
But so now you have to take a test to get in there, and the numbers came out yesterday that there's a very small portion of black New Yorkers that were admitted, right? And instead of saying, all right, how do we get more black and Hispanic students to get to a point where they can pass the test? Now Mamdani and all of the social justice advocates are talking about how can we again dismantle this test. So this is crazy. The most interesting person in the Times story on this today wasn't Mamdani, but it was a retired black math and engineering teacher from Brooklyn Tech named Sam Adewumi. He went to Brooklyn Tech himself in the 80s. He grew up in the South Bronx, and he said his middle school teachers told him about the specialized high schools. They prepared him for the test, and 3 other kids from his 8th grade class went to Brooklyn Tech with him. His explanation today in the papers is that middle schools don't make that a priority anymore because many of them are struggling just to get kids to pass the state test. That's the whole debate.
Right.
So New York City school system is failing to prepare black and Hispanic kids for a rigorous exam, and the solution is to get rid of the exam. That's what the mayor and these advocates want. The SHSAT, which is what they call that test, the specialized high school, exam, they may be revealing an inequality, but that doesn't mean the test created the inequality.
No. Ridiculous.
Mamdani says one test doesn't measure aptitude. Okay, I agree. But no test measures the totality of a human being. The question is whether this test measures the academic skills necessary to succeed in some of the most rigorous high schools in America. These schools are able to take one generation of immigrants who come here impoverished and turn them into wealthy lawyers, doctors, generals, radio station owners like John Catsimatidis, health insurance executives like my dad. These were people that grew up poor and working class, and because of the education that they got at these specialized high schools, they're able to be really successful people. And for the mayor to say we want to destroy these schools by destroying the test, why? Because too many Chinese people get in? Sorry. Help these kids, help these black and Hispanic kids pass the test.
Yeah, how about competing with the Asian kids who are home doing math and science while our kids are doing half-naked dances on TikTok? Is that the Asians' fault? Let's dumb down all of our tests so we can make sure that our moronic kids can compete. Mamdani's an asshole. That's the bottom line. I can't say it any better than that. But I'm going to say to you the same thing I said to Vicky Palladino yesterday. You are too smart and too good. You've already outlived the city council. I need you to run for something bigger. I really mean that, Frank.
Well,
I think you're brilliant.
It.
I think you're brilliant. I really do.
On Staten Island, we're very blessed to have a lot of very good elected officials. Queens, Vicky would be a greater improvement over John Liu, the state senator there. And obviously she and the borough president, the term limiter there, she'd be great there. But we're very lucky to have a great congressperson in Nicole Maliotakis, a great senator, and Andy Lanza. But honestly, if you could see the crazy bills that some of my colleagues in the city council, bring up on a regular basis, and of the things that the mayor's office is doing. We didn't even get into, maybe we can do it next time, the Department of Education contracting scandal, where this schools chancellor, Kamar Samuels, he may turn out to be the shortest tenured schools chancellor since Mike Bloomberg picked Kathy Black, because the amount of stonewalling and a lack of transparency about how these contracts are given out. I'm sure you saw the story, but maybe your audience might have missed it. They had a vendor that they had in schools that basically they encouraged the vendor to break the rules, or at least bend the rules, about how they were billing the city so that they could get paid. And on top of that, they found that a teacher that was dismissed for doing all sorts of wacky things with students was back in a school through the vendor. No vetting and anything at all. And we've asked, Julie Menon and the council have asked repeatedly about how these contracts are awarded, how the procurement process has been given out, and we've gotten no answers at all.
Of course not.
And only yesterday, when the mayor was threatened with a subpoena, did he say that they're going to be looking into it. So there's a lot going wrong with the city, and I think it may sound silly to people that think the city council is just a silly place to be, but there's a lot of need for oversight, and there's a lot of need for fighting the good fight on the city council. You were kind enough to mention my radio career, and I miss being on the radio very much, and that's why I'm so grateful when you give me these opportunities. But it was a very difficult decision to walk away from a show that I really enjoyed doing, number one, but was really growing in the ratings and affiliates and revenue and all the ways that we measure radio success. And I wouldn't be doing this and working 18 hours a day, literally maybe more, if I didn't think that I could move the needle forward and move the ball forward in a positive way. And we're trying to deliver for veterans. I'm doing that as the chair of the Veterans Committee and trying to do a lot of other good things. So I appreciate the endorsement for a future office, but I'm very content to stay here and battle the crazies as best as we can.
Well, God bless you, and no disrespect to anybody on the air now or prior, but we've never really replaced you. No one can. We, they're all nice people, but they don't come close to what you accomplished here.
I appreciate that, Sid.
It's true.
I
it's true. Listen, I tell the truth, and John can't yell at me if I tell the truth. I tell the truth. We've tried, and we have some nice people. There's a guy here now. He's very nice, but he ain't you. So listen, continued success. Keep up the fight, Frank Morano. You're great, and this was a great appearance as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Sid. Congratulations again on the interview with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Thank you.
Some of the people took issue with the clip that you played this morning and yesterday about me saying that you're maybe the most influential New York radio host since Bob Grant. I stand by that. I don't know that there's another local radio show that to talk about the biggest story in the country, the Lindsey Graham situation, could get the second most newsworthy person on the planet, which is Benjamin Netanyahu, to come on that show and talk about it and do so with a level of candor that I haven't really heard him express anywhere else. This is the only show where on any given day you could hear the president or Erdogan or Joe Benigno or like Darryl Strawberry. Like there's just no telling what will happen on this show any given day, and it's one of the reasons that I think people are afraid to tune out.
Thank you, buddy. Strawberry will be on this show Friday, just so you know.
Of course he is. Yeah, Erdogan to Strawberry.
Erdogan is going to be a tough one, but we'll see what we can do. Frank, great job. Really terrific. Thank you so much, pal. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I love you. Thanks for the support and allowing me on there.
The great Frank Morano right there, City Council member.
Thanks for listening to Sid and Friends in the Morning. You can hear Sid and Friends in the Morning weekday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?